Hey guys, let's look at Section 2 on the Civil War, Chapter 17, and let's take a look at some of the early Civil War battles. Now, your essential question, why wasn't the Civil War a quick and easy war? When you answer this essential question, you should be able to describe the strengths on each side, what was the strategy for winning. Secondly, I want you to be able to explain some of the early encounters that really dispelled the hopes that this would be a quick and easy war on either side. And then last, I want us to be able to identify some of those early victories for the Confederacy and the early victories for the Union that also indicated that this was going to be a long war. So the Union's plan for victory, they wanted to be the aggressive. Remember we talked about in Section 1 that the Union had more troops. The Union also had more resources, and so strategically they felt that they had an advantage, so they wanted to be the aggressors. They had a superior navy than that of the Confederacy, and so they would try to blockade the ports, not allow the Confederacy to trade with Europeans or receive supplies from the European states. So in the east, they sought to seize Richmond, the capital of the Confederacy, and then in the west, they sought to control the Mississippi River. Again, strategically, these two locations would allow for what the Union thought would be a quick end to the war. On the Confederate side, their plan was to hold tight and fight a defensive war, allow again, the Northerners, the Unions, to be the aggressors, and eventually get tired and recognize the sovereignty of the Confederate states. They also relied heavily on the support of European money and their trade with the Europeans. Their hopes was that the Europeans would recognize that the Confederacy was sovereign and that they would continue to buy and trade with the southern states. One of the early encounters to the Civil War, the battles of Bull Run, the Union troops, again, seeking to take over Richmond, they left from Washington, D.C. Early on, they have some successes as they move toward Richmond, yet Stonewall Jackson is able to rally his troops and stop the movement of the Union Army. Eventually, the Union Army would flee back to Washington, D.C., and what really came about because of the battles of Bull Run was that both sides were very ill-equipped to fight this battle. A lot of chaos, a lot of disorganization amongst the ranks on both sides. And then secondly, the war was going to be long and bloody, that it was not going to be an easy one for either the South nor for the Union. The leadership for the Union under George McClellan brought some organization and some training to the soldiers. So this was a positive thing. But on the flip side, because General McClellan was so cautious, the Union Army didn't gain the early successes that they could have had he been, as historians look back, more aggressive in his approach. We do take naval action, and so we're able to seize some of the ports and blockade and stop some of the trade and some of the supplies to come into Union. One of the reasons why is the development of ironclad ships. Two such ships, the Virginia and the Monitor. Again, naval battle, naval warfare becomes an intricate part early on in the Civil War, but we're going to see later on even more important. So the Battle of Antietam. This is probably the biggest or the bloodiest battle, a one-day battle in American history. General Lee takes the offensive, but McClellan is able to get access to Lee's plans. But as we said earlier, despite of having these plans, he's still cautious in his approach to General Lee. And so some 23,000 troops are killed between the Union and Confederate armies in this battle. Lee eventually retreats. McClellan doesn't pursue Lee, and so what Lincoln decides to do is to appoint Ambrose Burnside as the leader and commander of the Union Army. He's able to take or gained some ground in the Battle of Antietam, but eventually the Confederates are able to push them back, and so it's basically a wash. Again, pronouncing the longevity and bloodiness of the Civil War. Some of the early Confederate victories was at Fredericksburg. Again, as the Union troops moved toward Richmond, they encountered Union soldiers at the Battle of Fredericksburg. Strategically, this was a bad move for the Union Army, as the Confederate troops has a strategic advantage as they are atop the hillside, and so as you come onto a frontal assault, you basically the Confederate troops are able to mow down the Union Army, and so it's a strategic victory for the Confederacy, and for the Union, it's our worst defeat in the battle so far. In addition, the Battle of Chancellorsville, Robert E. Lee is able to strategically divide his troops, even though he's outnumbered by the Union Army. Yet he loses his right-hand man, Stonewall Jackson, in friendly fire as they go out. He sends Stonewall Jackson to flank the left side of the Union Army, and Stonewall Jackson basically gets caught in friendly fire and eventually dies of his injuries. Some early Union victories. As we shift to the west, we see the Union has more success under General Ulysses S. Grant. One particular battle is the Battle of Shiloh. Grant is able to defeat the Union forces at the Battle of Shiloh, and this allows him to gain constant momentum and victories in the West as a commander of the Union forces. In addition, we're able to capture the Mississippi River and the port at New Orleans, giving us a strategic advantage in the South. So what I want you guys to do now is go ahead and pause the tape, go on to Moodle, answer your essential question, make sure you're able to focus on describing the strengths of each side, explain how early encounters dispel hopes for a quick end to the war, and then identify victories on both the Confederate and the Union sides. Look forward to talking in class with you guys. Bye.